Ever feel like the world's running on a shoestring? Kind of makes you want to walk on eggshells, right? Well, today we're diving into a situation that almost proved that point.
Hmm.
A potential dock workers strike on the U.S. East Coast
Right.
and the Gulf Coast had everyone in construction holding their breath.
Yeah. It is pretty fascinating how these massive systems that we depend on operate so close to the edge, often without a lot of public awareness.
Right, like watching a high wire act that you didn't know was happening.
Yeah.
And we've all heard about those shipping container pileups.
Right.
But what many people don't realize is that a huge chunk of those containers are filled with building materials.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And the potential strike involved dock workers at 36 major ports.
Wow.
That's not a small disruption
No.
when you think about it.
And they weren't asking for a small raise either.
No.
A 77% pay increase over 6 years. That's a pretty bold demand,
It's a strong negotiating tactic.
especially with the shipping companies reporting like record profits recently.
Well, it's important to kind of understand that the cost of shipping, especially over the past few years, has been incredibly volatile, right? The pandemic, global events, fluctuations in demand, all these things sort of contribute to a very complex picture.
So with the stakes this high, what happened next? Did those ports grind to a halt? Were we on the brink of another supply chain meltdown? Tell me it's not as bad as it sounds.
Well, the good news is it didn't get to that point. At least not this time. They managed to reach a tentative agreement pretty quickly, thankfully.
A tentative agreement. So does that mean everything went back to normal right away? What exactly does tentative mean in this context?
Yeah, that's a great question. A tentative agreement in a labor negotiation like this means the two sides, the union representing the dock workers and the port authorities, they agreed on the sort of major points of a new contract, but it's not a done deal just yet. It still needs to be formally voted on and approved by the union members themselves.
So it's like a sigh of relief, but with a hold your breath moment still to come.
Precisely. And even though the strike itself was averted, the ripple effects of these kinds of close calls can be significant.
Okay, so let's talk about those ripple effects.
Yeah.
What kind of impact are we looking at even with this averted crisis?
Well, first and foremost, there's the issue of the backlog.
Right.
Right. Even a short shutdown creates a bottleneck in the system.
Sure.
Ships were already backed up at many of these ports, and those delays don't magically disappear overnight. It takes time to clear out the queue, get those containers unloaded, and then work through the existing backlog of goods waiting to be shipped out.
So even if the ports are back up and running, things aren't moving at their usual pace.
Exactly. Yeah. Imagine a highway with with a multi-car pileup. Even once the wreckage is cleared, it takes a while for traffic to return to normal. Now think of all the things besides construction materials that flow through those ports: vehicles, electronics, clothing, food. The list goes on and on.
You're painting quite a picture, and I'm guessing this slowdown doesn't bode well for those already inflated shipping costs.
You're right to be concerned. Yeah, increased costs for shipping and transportation. They tend to trickle down, often impacting consumers like you. And it's not just the immediate costs; it's the long-term implications.
This is where I'm sure a lot of our listeners, especially those planning home renovations, are starting to sweat a little. So what does this mean for them? Sure, should they be bracing for major delays? So should everyone planning a renovation be bracing for major delays?
I wouldn't say panic is necessary, but a little foresight goes a long way. If you're starting a project, especially one involving imported materials, have that conversation with your contractor or supplier early on. They're usually the first to know about potential delays or price hikes.
So knowledge is power, as they say.
Absolutely, and don't hesitate to ask questions if a certain type of tile is a must-have. Find out if there are good domestic alternatives, or if your contractor can source it from somewhere less likely to be affected by port congestion.
Yeah, it's all about planning ahead and being a little flexible.
Right. And this situation also kind of highlights an interesting opportunity, I think.
An opportunity. How so?
Well, maybe it's a chance to explore, local suppliers or materials that don't have to travel halfway across the world.
That's a great point. Yeah, you might discover some hidden gems and support local businesses in the process. Okay, so we've covered the strike, the close call, and the potential ripple effects, but this whole thing feels like it has like some bigger implications. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, this situation really, I think, underscores just how interconnected and frankly fragile our global supply chains really are. We live in a world where we expect to get what we want when we want it, but as we've seen, that's not always realistic.
It's easy to forget how much complexity is kind of baked into even the simplest things.
Right? Yeah.
We flip a switch and the lights turn on, but we don't always think about the power plants, the grids, and the people who keep it all running.
Right. We take it for granted until something disrupts the flow. And I think, this situation also kind of highlights the vital role of labor and the often invisible people who keep these essential goods and materials moving.
Yeah, maybe a little more patience and appreciation are in order. The next time you're waiting for a package or see a news story about a supply chain issue, just take a moment to think about the bigger picture.
Yeah, it's a complex system with a lot of moving parts, and sometimes things are going to get delayed. That's just the reality.
Well, on that note of global interconnectedness and newfound appreciation for supply chains, it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
Indeed. It's been a fascinating conversation.
As always, a huge thank you to you, our listeners, for joining us on this journey into the world of averted crises and those ever so important shipping containers. Until next time, stay curious out there.